All right, welcome back in to the podcast. Hopefully I'm able to have this one up on YouTube by the morning. It is currently 2 a.m. here local time in Gainesville. We are recording this. We are trying to pump it out to you. And I say we, it's just me, really. I don't know why I'm saying that. It's me, Joe Baker. I'm trying to get this pod up and running. It's all college basketball today. It's focused on Florida and their opponents. Maryland will also be running through other March Madness storylines, all the other games this weekend. Quick previews, 2 to 3 minutes for each one of them, at least I hope. We might be talking about Arizona and Duke, Caleb Love for a little while, but we'll be talking about the Crab Five. We'll be talking about Walter Clayton. We'll be talking about this Maryland team and this matchup. Also a little bit of parity talk and transfer portal being open. It's an exciting time in college basketball. It's all happening. Hope you learned something today. Hope you enjoy this episode from my makeshift studio, which I'll put on screen now. Enjoy the episode. Go Gators, and let's get right into it. All right, let's kick this off. If you're living under a rock, obviously, Maryland last weekend, a huge win over Colorado State. Buzzer beater, came at the death. You've heard a lot about the big man, the freshman big man center, Derek Queen, out of Baltimore, stayed home. Obviously, a 5-star coming into the season. He is going to be a big problem. Maryland, their starting five, they call them the Crab Five. A little bit of a play on words of the Fab Five for any of your older folks who remember those Michigan teams. They all played 33 minutes. All 5 starters played 33 minutes or more on Sunday. You look at other teams in this tournament, Florida, good bench production. Michigan State, in the same conference as Maryland, has the best bench production in the entire tournament, and they are still alive. Maryland, quite the opposite, not a deep team at all. Trying to get this Maryland team in foul trouble is an obvious key to the game, but really not as practical as it may seem. One of the best defenses in the country, according to KenPom. They're the 6th best defense. According to Bart Torvik, they have the 5th best defense in the country. So very efficient on the defensive side of the ball. If you don't know what either of those words I just said are, no, it is not some gibberish language. Those are 2 highly trusted and useful college basketball stat sites. I always like to talk about college basketball as, the one sport that you really can lean on nerd stuff, if you will, for advanced stats. Predictive metrics are actually reliable in this sport, and they love Maryland. As I just said, top 6 defense in both of the biggest predictive metrics, and then a top 25 offense in both of those as well. A little bit to know about all of the Maryland players. They're big men, very, very good. Already talked about Derek Queen briefly, hit that huge shot, travel or not, we'll discuss that later. He stayed home. He's a true freshman this year, but he does not play like one. Stands at 6'10", plays a true center role. I think he's a little taller, but he's listed on sites as 6'10". He's averaging 16 points, 9 boards, 2 assists, and a block per game this season. He is terrific. Very good rebounder. Along with their other big man, Julian Reese really plays the 4 for Maryland, but he plays like a true big man of old. He's a 4-year player here at Maryland, which, as we'll discuss later in the episode, a bit of a rarity. The transfer portal absolutely dominating this sport right now. A 3-year starter with the Terps, and he averages 13 points and 9 boards as well. Both of them shooting over 50%, so very efficient. More of your throwback traditional post players if you enjoyed that style of basketball. Obviously, you see so much run and gun from teams like Alabama and BYU who are facing off this weekend, even from Florida, who has good big man production but doesn't really like to just dump the ball in the paint and let Ruben or Micah work. It's more offensive rebound based or plays or sets based, where we kind of get the pick and roll game going and have them flash to the rim for alley-oops and throwdowns. Maryland, more of that traditional team, but they are also lethal from behind the 3-point line. Their 3 guards, Jacoby Gillespie, Selton Miguel, and Rodney Rice, all averaging over 12 points a game. And as a team, they shoot 37% from 3. That is good for 26th best in the country. Jacoby Gillespie is the biggest threat out of those 3, at least on the offensive side of the ball. He's the point guard, really. All 3 of them can handle the ball, but Gillespie, the best passer by far, averaging 5 assists a game per season, or 5 assists per game this season to go along with his double-digit point scoring. A little bit about the Terps. Those are the players, and I only list 5 because those are the 5 you got to look out for, man. Maryland finished second in the Big Ten this season. They're top 10 in KenPom and Bart Torvik, so not underseeded, you could say, but a very well-deserved 4 seed and a very, very good team in a 4 seed. It was not any sort of a fluke of a season. In fact, they probably should have won more games than they did. The last 4 losses are all come down to last-second shots and buzzer beaters. If any of y'all remember, they lost to Northwestern in upset all the way back in January. That was an overtime game winner at the death. Ohio State, Bruce Thornton, a step-back 3 in what is now kind of a bad loss. Ohio State did not make the tournament on the bubble there at the end of the season. Michigan State, I'm sure everybody saw the clip, but it was in College Park, a huge game for both teams. Obviously, both teams fighting for the Big Ten tournament. Michigan State's Trey Holloman hits a shot from behind the half-court line at the buzzer, stuns Maryland. That one, huge importance looking back at it. Michigan State finished first in the Big Ten, Maryland second, so that kind of gave Sparty the advantage it needed, I guess you could say. And that might be a bit of a stretch. Michigan State won the conference by 3 games. And then Michigan in the Big Ten semifinal, also a heartbreaker. So what can the Gators do to kind of combat this team? Obviously, if you can get the Crab 5 in foul trouble, that would be huge. Obviously, the bench, not much of a factor. I believe the bench scored, I know they scored in single digits. I think they may have only scored 3 or 5 points in the Colorado State game. That Colorado State game, by the way, incredible. Sad to see Nick Clifford's career end like that. Lake played out of his mind, obviously. Hit that huge 3 that we all thought would be the game winner before Derek Queen came down and hit that little 2.5, maybe 3-step travel layup. Up for you to decide. It was a cool moment. I have no problem with the fact that they didn't call it. But the Terps will be a tall task for the Gators. What can you expect from Florida? Obviously, I hope you've been watching this team all season. It's been an absolute joy. Walter Clayton has been terrific. One of the 4 best players in the country. Nominated in the final as a finalist for the Player of the Year. I saw earlier this week alongside Flag Broom and Braden Smith. But there are so many Player of the Year awards. That's something we'll have to worry about when it all gets out. Anyway, I think he's the best guard in the country. I think he's the best offensive guard in the country. He's the guard I would want with the ball. He's the player. Never mind the guards, man. He's the player I would like with the ball more than anybody in the country. One other thing of note at Maryland is I don't want to get too much in the coaching carousel. This is March. The players deserve the shine. The games deserve the shine. But Kevin Willard has been on an unbelievable week as the Maryland Terrapin head coach. Just bizarre stuff coming from the main man in College Park. He has been openly complaining about Maryland's athletic department, about the NIL situation. A real bizarre situation. And many think he's going to go to Villanova. And if I had to weigh in with my unbiased opinion and what I've seen over my short lifespan of watching sports, a reporter asked him if he would be going to Villanova, and he said, "Nah, as of right now, I'm staying." And if I had to take a guess, that means that unless this Maryland team gets to the Final Four national championship, I'll have my bags packed and I will be wearing navy blue, repping the Wildcats here in just about a week or so. So a lot of Maryland fans frustrated with him, frustrated with his responses, obviously, today at the press conference. Go check out that clip if you haven't. But reporter asks him a question about the comments he's made. Maryland obviously doesn't have an athletic director right now, so it might just be hey, I don't have a boss, I'm just going to have fun right now type of situation. But just bizarre comments from Willard, and he responded and did not answer the question in the slightest. Instead, talked about his game plan for the Gators. A funny clip, a crazy deflection. But anyway, that's just another external factor to watch. I think a lot of Maryland fans are torn between excitement for their team being in this position, an opportunity to win 2 games and get to a Final Four, and their coach kind of being off his rocker this week. A lot of unhinged comments from Coach Willard. We'll see how that all pans out. Hopefully, if you're a Gator fan, their season will be over in just over a day from now, and we'll all see how that works out. One interesting thing of note is Florida's a top 5 scoring team in the country, and Maryland has not allowed 85 points all year, something that Florida likes to score for fun. So I'm not going to give you any over-under betting advice. I'm not a very good gambler myself, but I will say that is an interesting point thing to watch. Maryland's used to playing games in the 60s and 70s. Florida, obviously, they'll allow some points, but a good defensive team and a fabulous offensive team, they're used to putting them up. Stifled a bit by UConn, and I think that UConn game is really going to help this team figure it out in the later rounds. I think it was a great wake-up call. Before that UConn game, the Gators had won their previous 5 games by an average of 19 points, and yes, that includes the SEC tournament, where they were playing some of the best teams in the country. All right, now we're moving on to our next topic, and before I dive into the quick previews of the other games, which is just going to be a couple notes on each team, if I tell you all I know about all of them, we'll be here for hours and hours, so quickly before I get into all that, though, I want to have a little bit of discussion with really just the void or the angry college basketball fans of the world or the angry casual fans of the world who do not like this tournament this year. A lot of people are saying, oh, no upsets, oh, it's all the same conferences, oh, we don't have some traditional teams in, but at the same time, there are no 11 upseeds in, it's the first time in 12 or whatever many years, this and that and this and that, no upsets. First of all, you got your buzzer beater last weekend. You can calm down. Fantastic games were played in the round of 32. A few fantastic games were played in the round of 64. Sure, you don't have the upsets, but guess what? That means you get an unbelievable Sweet 16 and beyond, and I think that's what we're looking at here. Another complaint that I've seen a lot, and I'm sure other outlets have touched on this, but as I said, I tried to stay off the internet this week. Didn't listen to any college basketball podcasts. Didn't want to listen or read any articles or any fact or any notes and steal somebody's take, if you will. Anyway, this is my take. I'm sure it's circulating the internet, but people are complaining about only 4 conferences. Only 4 conferences are left. That is, with all due respect, actually with no due respect, that is BS. Tell me you just don't pay attention to the sport. The only 4 conferences thing, that's all due to all this new, blame the TV people, blame the Big Ten, blame the SEC, blame the Big 12, and I don't blame them. I think the sport's in a great spot, but there are fewer teams from other conferences because the big conferences have grown by so much, man. You're just combining all the conferences into one. It's conference consolidation, it's conference growth. That's the reason. Let me read to you some teams that were just in other conferences a couple years ago or a year ago, and now have shifted to new ones, and people are losing their minds about it, man. Arizona was in the Pac-12, now in the Big 12. Take the Pac-12 out. Oregon also, by the way, did not end up making it, but had they won, they would have also been in a similar situation where still would have been, 4 conferences, but they were in the Pac-12 a year ago as well. Anyway, Arizona from the Pac-12, BYU, now in the Big 12. Guess where they just were? The West Coast Conference. If they were in the West Coast Conference, everybody would be like, hey, look at this story, isn't this fun? But no. They change and everybody's like, it's a boring old same power conferences. BYU, or rather Houston, American Athletic Conference, just a couple years ago. Since they moved to the Big 12, they've been incredible and they've been playing higher quality games. But people want to complain for, 4 conferences, no parity, no upsets, because they just moved. So you go back in time before all the conferences got incorporated in the way that they did, and you have 16 teams from 7 conferences instead of 4. So I think people need to stop complaining about this. It's all due to conference realignment and growth. And if conferences weren't having 30 teams per, it would look different. But guess what? This is the new way that college sports work. And I don't think it subtracts from parity. Obviously, this year a bit of an outlier, but I don't think these teams being in new conferences ruins the Sweet 16 for anybody. I think these programs should just be viewed as the programs rather than, look at these conferences. I think we should be like, hey, look at BYU. Look where they're at with a first-year head coach coming from the West Coast Conference where they hadn't gotten this far since Jimmer Fredette. Look at Houston, who was an incredible American program, kind of outclassed that league, moved to the Big 12. Haven't changed the DNA of their team, man. They still recruit hard-nosed guys. They still play the same style of basketball. The patch in the upper right-hand corner of their jersey's just different now. And we get all fussy about it because, it's a Big 12 patch now, and so there's no parity. But no, it's the same program. I don't know if that makes sense, but that's the way I view it. And at the same time, another storyline is if the SEC gets 2-3 teams for sure in the Final Four, and especially if it wins a title this year, I have no doubt in my mind that I think it would be totally fine to say this is the best season ever from a single conference. It has 7 teams in the Sweet 16. Yes, it's had quite a few. It's had 7 to be exact eliminated. To be fair, though, anybody calling the SEC frauds is an idiot, because the only team that, based on their seed, which means 1 through 4 seeds, are expected to get to the Sweet 16, barring all upsets, if that makes any sense. The only team that's not here that was seeded in a position to get here was Texas A&M, and that was because they lost to a Michigan team who played their best offense of the season. It felt like they could not miss in that second half. Shout out Roddy Gale, by the way. That was a remarkable performance from the Wolverines. But they, as a 4 seed, lost to a 5 seed. All the other SEC teams that are out were seeded in a way that they should not have made it here. So I don't think there are any indictments on the SEC at all. Obviously, you have the Florida Gators as, in my opinion, the best team out of the SEC in a 1 seed. You have Arkansas, the lowest seed, at 10 seed. The first time Coach Cal has ever been a double-digit seed. Alabama, the 3-point shooting 2 seed. You got Ole Miss, Chris Beard, a fantastic job this year. In Oxford, he's got the Rebs as a 6 seed. Kentucky and Tennessee, a 3 seed and a 2 seed, respectively. And then Auburn, the number 1 overall seed in the tournament, still in. So the SEC is guaranteed to send at least 1 team to the Elite Eight. I have a feeling it'll be just a few more than that. If you want to complain about no drama or no Cinderella runs, sure, we don't have an 11 seed. That sucks. That's abnormal. But one thing I think people do is they romanticize this tournament to a point that is unfair to the tournament itself. People point at, UMBC, that's happened twice in a billion years of the tournament existing. They point to VCU's run to the Final Four, or Wichita State or something like that. That doesn't happen often, man. Getting to the Final Four is a huge accomplishment. I think Loyola Chicago was the last team to do it in that sort of a position, in that low of a seed. But these things don't happen very often. VCU was about 15 years ago now. Loyola Chicago, we're coming up on 7 years, I believe, since they did it. So it's something that I do understand, because, the casual basketball fan, or even the hardcore one, you get in the beginning of March, you get to the end of the season, and you start watching the compilations on YouTube. Oh, clutchest shots, biggest upsets. And I think you rewire your brain. I think you program it just to think that these upset teams are legit and come every year and make runs and stuff. Obviously, a few years ago, we had one of the most upset-laden tournaments we've ever seen. So many upsets. Princeton, it was the standout to me that season. Obviously, they were tremendous that year. Made it all the way to the Sweet 16. St. Peter's. St. Peter's made it to the second weekend. That was an unbelievable team. But all these examples I'm pointing out to y'all are coming years apart. So the fact that we don't have a true Cinderella this year, sure, it might suck, but at the same time, you can't expect it to happen every year, then it wouldn't be madness. And also, this is setting up for a fantastic Sweet 16. I think you truly have 16 of the best teams in the entire country competing for a national championship, which, as fun as first weekend upsets are, if you're watching the season all year, or even if you're not, I think it's only fair and it's a rational take to want to see the best teams compete for a title. All right, that goes my little rant. I honestly prefer it this way. Sure, I'd love for a few Cinderella stories, but you don't want to get bad Sweet 16 Elite 8 games. If St. Peter's was on the schedule, not to be disrespectful, but if Robert Morris is still rolling, if Norfolk State is still playing this weekend, incredible story. But you don't really want to watch that game now, do you? You know the outcome. Eventually one of those teams is going to lose, and it's going to lose bad. And I don't know. I might just be old men who are yelling at clouds, if you will. I think I just made that expression up. I've never heard it before. I was on the fly. But that's my sort of thing, is that you're going to get 8 insanely high-level games, 8 tremendous games between tremendously talented teams who deserve to be here, who have worked all year to be here, who fought through power conferences to be here. And yes, you can look for the negative in it, but I prefer to look for the positive, man. I love this sport. I think this is going to be one of the best second and third weekends of the tournament I've ever seen. And at the end of the day, I want the best teams competing for the title, man. Like a Florida Duke title would go down in history, because it would be between two of the best teams all season long. I think all of these teams can make that argument. And now I'll get off my soapbox, but just before we dive into the games, I wanted to say that real quick. All right, I've already taken 20 minutes of your time, so we are going to get through these previews really, really, really quick. We're going to start in the Gators region, Arkansas, Texas Tech in the West. A little thing to know about each squad. Arkansas at 10 seed. It is the first time in Coach Kell's coaching history that he has coached a double-digit seed to the tournament. And by golly, he has gotten them all the way down into the Sweet 16. The second weekend, they started 0-5 in SEC play. Something to know about Arkansas. Adu Thero, my favorite player on this team, a freak athlete. Unbelievable to watch, man. This guy can play offense, but the real joy is watching him defend and jump for rebounds, man. He is fast, he is physical, he is strong, he can leap. And a polished player at that. 16-6 is what he's averaging this year. He is cleared to play. He missed all of last weekend. Hogs won despite of that. He is their leading scorer. Boogie Fland got cleared but to play last week. He had been sitting out for months after suffering an injury early in the season. He was cleared to play last week. He got his feet wet, dipped his toes in that tournament experience, if you will. He was tremendous for them in limited minutes. He's going to be back out on the court, so Arkansas going to be full strength for the first time in so long. And regaining your best player is always a great place to be. They will take on the Texas Tech Red Raiders. Had a bit of a scare in the first round against UNC Wilmington, then cleaned it up, beat Drake. Drake hung around, but Tech was clearly the better team there towards the end. An elite shooting team, but the real star of the show is JT Toppin. I think he's the best big man in the country, not named Cooper Flagg. And no, I am not forgetting Janai Broome. He averages 18 and 9 for them. He's a true sophomore. He came from Richard Pitino's New Mexico last year. Obviously now Pitino has moved himself on. He'll coach Xavier, the Musketeers, next year. But anyway, it'll be a fun battle between him and Jonas Adu for Arkansas down in the paint. Toppin's so strong, but really nice touch around the rim. Fantastic scorer. And as I said, 18 and 9. I think he should have been. He's on my first team All-America. Obviously discussed that in a prior podcast, but I love JT Toppin. If I'll do picks, I suppose. Gun to my head, I'm going to pick Texas Tech. I think an Arkansas rematch would be really fun. Arkansas obviously really scared the Gators earlier this season in Fayetteville. Gators came out victorious. But Texas Tech, man, it's such a good shooting team. It's a really good defensive team. And Grant McCasland has really done well to keep that program rolling. And JT Toppin. He and Williams down low create real issues, and I think it'll be enough to get by Arkansas. All right, really trying to stick to 2 minutes per preview. BYU, Alabama, the next one. If you have a friend that says they only like NBA basketball or they hate college basketball, there's no scoring, the players are so bad, it's so sloppy, get them to tune into this game. All offensive battle here. I'm expecting a score in the 90s, which is a crazy thing to say in a March Madness game. Here's why. BYU shoots the most threes in the country per game. Alabama has statistically the fastest offense in the country, and I know those both sound like hyperboles, but no, those are fact-based, those are stat-based. That is what happens. Richie Saunders for BYU, I'm sure you all know him as the guy with the Tater Tot NIL deal. He's actually pretty dang good at basketball too. 16-4 on the season for Saunders against Mark Sears, who was a first-team All-American. I did not have him on my first-team All-America, but he has a tremendous career. Another good season for him. He averages 19 and 5 assists. A good distributor this year as well as a shooter. For me, the key is Grant Nelson. Dealing with a bit of an injury. They didn't want to play him against Robert Morris, interestingly, but that game was so close late that they had to put him in. He made the difference. I thought he was decent last year. I don't think enough people are talking about how much his game has improved. He's so impressive offensively. He'll do the job defensively, a good rebounder. Really athletic, and the fact that he can score from all three levels is so impressive. Gets where he wants on the court. I love watching Grant Nelson. He is the key. Battle of two pretty good big men. It'll be Traore for BYU taking on Cliff Amori from Alabama. Amori, a familiar name for any of y'all who watched Rutgers basketball last year. He's had a good season for Bama. Tough defender, good rebounder down low. I think that'll be an interesting battle to watch, but for me, the key is Grant Nelson. Agor Demon for BYU. Could be his last game in a Cougar uniform. He will be a first-rounder in the NBA draft. I'm super excited for this game, rooting for BYU. You know what? I'm going to pick BYU. Alabama, I've said all year that they're good when they play their A game. Nobody can beat them. But it's just not the same as these previous Alabama teams. And I think BYU has the firepower, and who knows, they get hot. I think we get a 6 seed in the Elite Eight and potentially the Final Four. Moving on. It's the best team in the country, the Duke Blue Devils, taking on Arizona. And in terms of storylines, I mean, this is the game of the weekend. Come on. Casual college basketball fans, tune in. You know this team. You love this team. And you love Arizona's point guard as well. Caleb Love, y'all remember the name. He's averaging 17, 4, and 4 this year. He can't avoid Duke, man. Just a career that is, I don't want to say tainted because he's gotten the better of them in the most important situations, but a career that you can't say the words Caleb Love without mentioning Duke. A chance to be a legend, college basketball legend forever. And here's why I say this. If you guys don't remember, back however many years ago now, 4, as an underclassman, he ended Coach K, Mike Krzyzewski's career at Duke. His final game in Cameron Indoor, UNC came in and beat them with Caleb Love. As the storybook would have it, they would end up meeting in the Final Four that same season. Guess what? Same result. UNC, an 8 seed that season, beats Duke, ruins their season, literally finishes Coach K's career in the most unbelievable of fashions. I think North Carolina kind of not permanently won that rivalry, but you can always point to that if you're a Carolina fan. Who cares? Duke's better right now. You won the ones that mattered. Obviously, I'm joking, but I'm also kind of not. So he has the opportunity to end Coach K's career. I believe that was the Paolo Banchero year, so I think you'd have the chance to end Coach K, Paolo Banchero, and now Cooper Flagg, the number 1 prospect, and who knows how long. A real lightning rod in college basketball. My personal player of the year, the guy that I think will win player of the year given the media. So you have an opportunity to end 2 number 1 overall picks and arguably the greatest coach in the history of the sports career. Just one player. So Caleb Love has the opportunity to do something legendary. However, it's going to be really, really, really tough. This Duke team is the highest rated team in KenPom history. And that is not an overstatement. This is literally statistically one of the best college basketball teams of all time. They're all tall. They can all score. Kaman Maluach is a black hole as a defender down low. Do not drive near him. I think Arizona is severely outmatched. I think they have a lot of good players. I think they have a lot of good transfers. Trey Townsend, I'd like to see him get going. Oakland player from last season. But ultimately, it's going to be the Caleb Love show. He's going to have a monster day to even give them a chance. An interesting note about this one, obviously, you all know how good Flagg is. Con Knipple, a wonderful scorer as well. 6'7" frame on him, by the way. But Tyrese Proctor, the Australian point guard for them, wears number 5 in white and blue. He is 13 from 16 from 3 in his 2 tournament games. He's averaging 22 and 3.5 assists and just half a turnover. That means 1 turnover in both games in this tournament. But he is red hot. He's shooting somewhere in the 70s or 80% so far in March. If he does that, Arizona has no shot to win this game, and I feel very confident with that statement. Obviously, if you somehow haven't watched a Duke game yet, I get it. They're in the ACC. I don't want to watch the ACC either. But Cooper Flagg, number 2, he's the guy to watch. He's going to be the number 1 overall pick. He leads the team in points, rebounds, assists, blocks, steals, everything that matters. Cooper Flagg is the guy. Brilliant at both ends of the floor. One of the best freshmen we have ever seen. All right, we got to move quickly along now. Don't want to bore you all onto the Friday games. Ole Miss and Michigan State, obviously above the Gators. Shall any of these teams advance to the Final Four? They could be a Gator opponent in the national semifinal. I think the storyline here is two unbelievable coaching jobs. Tom Izzo, Michigan State legend, has taken one of his least talented rosters this year to the Sweet 16. I don't say that to be disrespectful. I've done a lot of research. I've done a lot of reading on this team throughout the season and preseason and really throughout a month. This Michigan State team was nothing special, man. This was widely considered by people inside and around the program one of, if not the worst, not the worst, that's disrespectful, but it was one of the worst rosters he's had, just talent-wise. You look at this team, they lost Tyson Walker, if you remember him from last year, number 2, their point guard. He was the main man. He got everything going. They lost Matty Sissoko. He transferred out. Xavier Booker, gone. So you look at these guys and you see returning pieces, but they're all just kind of like supporting cast guys, you know? Holloman, no disrespect. Akins, no disrespect. Even down low, Kohler. And again, no disrespect, but these weren't guys that you were looking at being like, hey, this team can make a Final Four run. The X Factor, Jace Richardson, son of Jason Richardson, NBA, obviously, Michigan State. He played there. His kid now plays there, and Jace has been fantastic. He's been an absolute, I don't even know, just fire starter for that team. Obviously, got off to such a hot start in the Big Ten, then faced some real competition and struggled. Jace Richardson started to cook, and this team has been on fire since. Another note, they have the best bench left in the tournament. They average the most points, account for nearly half of the team's points per game. So it's a Michigan State team that does not just rely on one guy. It can defend, and the entire team can score if needed. Moving on to Ole Miss, Chris Beard. Definitely a spotty pass, but my goodness, is he good between the lines. Beard now has absolutely taken over and transformed 4 programs. Look at Little Rock. I remember they beat Purdue in the tournament, however many years ago it was. Hired at Texas Tech, turned that into a basketball school, and no, that is not an exaggeration. Got them all the way to the Final Four up in Minnesota. Then Texas had them at number 1 in the country at one point in time. Fired there for certain reasons that we won't discuss. This is just the basketball show. And now has Ole Miss as a 6 seed, a school that has never been known for the basketball program. It is fighting for its chance to go to the Final Four. You take a look at their run last week, a very good week. They beat the pulp out of 2 teams. UNC, they let UNC back in it, which a little concern maybe. UNC, I did not think they were good enough to get in the tournament. I still do not think they should have gotten in the tournament, but you can't control who you play. Good job, Ole Miss. Then after that, they beat the ever-living stuff, if you will, out of Iowa State. Iowa State was a team I had going to the Final Four. Why? Because I remember watching them play even when they had Keyshawn Gilbert back in November and December, and I know, I'm an idiot. But I think Iowa State's still a good team. Obviously lost the juice without Gilbert and towards the end of the season. But Ole Miss, that was impressive. I don't care who is wearing that Cyclone jersey. What Ole Miss did to them was so impressive. Dominant. From whistle to whistle, from rooter to tooter, as some would say. A lot of cool stories on this Ole Miss team. Padula, Virginia Tech transfer, leader of this squad. Matthew Morrell, an Ole Miss legend. I believe their all-time points leader, a senior, has sweated out for the Rebels, been through coaching changes, seen the dark days of the program, now gets a chance to compete for the Final Four. And Brakefield, a really cool story. If you want to look more into him, we got to keep rolling through these matchups, but he is a fantastic player and a good guy as well. Okay, quickly moving along. I said I'd be shorter, and I don't think I was there, but Kentucky versus Tennessee, we'll keep this nice and short. Since a lot of y'all are Gator fans listening to this, you've got the opportunity to see both play this year. Kentucky swept the regular season series against Tennessee. One big note about this Kentucky team, Lamont Butler has been awesome. Even though he has still got that hurt shoulder, he's not going to be 100%. Wears that clunky black shoulder strap sleeve thing, but he's still been very, very good for them. If he continues that production, I think they'll win this game again. Tennessee, though, this is the most comfortable I've seen them looking on offense all season long. I love Chaz Lanier, man. He's such a good scorer. Zakai Ziegler, steady Eddie, man. He knows what he's doing. A great defender, obviously. and a good scorer and passer as well. Just a consummate college point guard. Jemai Mashack, my favorite defender to watch in all of college basketball. I think it'll be a great game. Kentucky, can they pull off the three-peat against Tennessee in one season? A fascinating game between two rivals. Should be fun to watch. Moving on quickly. Michigan versus Auburn. Maybe the most excited I am for a game this weekend in terms of an actual matchup and a true coin toss and who I think will win. Broome and Caldwell. Obviously, Caldwell, defensive stalwart, Janai Broome. A chance to be National Player of the Year. It's him or Flag. They will meet their match with Michigan's Twin Towers, as I call them. Danny Wolf and Vlad Golden. Danny Wolf, a 7-foot point forward, heard him referred to as Jewish Jokic, perhaps. He knocked Auburn out of the tournament last season when he was at Yale. Transfers to Go Blue Nation up in Ann Arbor. He's averaging 13, 9 boards, and 4 assists this season. Tremendous at that 7-foot point forward type of role. And he runs a pick and roll with another 7-footer, Vlad Golden, the FAU transfer, former teammates with Elijah Martin. Golden's averaging 17 and 7, but he can be a huge factor when he needs to be. He can go get you 30. Another interesting note, Trey Donaldson, an Auburn transfer, the starting point guard for this UM squad. The thing with UM all season was their guards aren't good enough. The supporting cast, you can't trust the guards, man. They don't score enough. They're just not quality enough, man. But they were so good against Texas A&M. I watched nearly that entire game. A&M looked like they had him, but Roddy Gale especially, and the rest of those guards. Trey Donaldson made a circus shot too. I think that was really the dagger. If they play like that, man, they can beat anybody, and I mean that. One thing A&M does is they out-rebound everybody, and I mean everybody, and Michigan out-rebounded them. So I think that's going to be a huge advantage against this Auburn team that really relies on its bigs as well, obviously. It's going to be tough to guard the Auburn guards. Kelly and Jones, fantastic shooters. Baker Mazzara, tremendous at really doing everything on the floor as long as he keeps a level head. And Todd Pettiford, man, that kid's right out of an and1 mixtape. Those handles and jump shot is disgusting. I think this will be a great game, even though it's a 5 versus 1. I don't think that's a big of a difference. I got Michigan winning, to be honest, and I forgot to give my pick for the last two, but I got Michigan State and Kentucky for those. Breezing right along to our last game, Purdue versus Houston. This is the biggest complaint I think I have with the NCAA. Obviously, I listed complaints other people had. But the fact that Houston just got royally screwed in this region. They're the 1 seed. I think they have a legitimate gripe to be the number 1 overall seed, even though some would disagree. You know, they're statistically so good. All their predictive metrics are great. They haven't lost a game in so long. A tremendous season. You get the 1 seed. What do you get rewarded with? You have to play your Sweet 16 game against the Purdue Boilermakers in a basketball state in Indianapolis. You are playing what will be a true road game, a Purdue home game in this one in Lucas Oil. I also think this game should be at Gainbridge Fieldhouse, but whatever. That's neither here nor there. That is so messed up to do to them, and I still think they're such a better team that they'll come out with the win. But by golly, this is the dream scenario for Purdue, you know? You roll through a couple of easier teams, quote-unquote, in that first round, High Point and then McNeese, because McNeese was able to upset Clemson in the first round. So you play 2 12-plus seeds in your first 2 games, and then you get the opportunity to play a home game against the 1 seed. I mean, this can't work out any better. You put these guys in any other location, I feel way better about Houston. But knowing how crazy Boilermaker fans are, I think it'll be a near black and gold sellout here. And I think that'll kind of keep this Purdue team in the game, if anything does. What you need to know about Purdue, it's a 2-man show. It's Braden Smith, one of the best point guards in the country, a true junior, by the way. He'll be back next season. It's him and Trey Kaufman-Wren, their power forward. He has been an Edey replacement of sorts. Doesn't do quite the same thing, not as dominant, but he's fantastic in the pick and roll. He's more athletic than Edey, and he's a really good scorer himself. So if you're tuning in on Friday night, it's going to be Braden Smith, the point guard. He's got the beard, and Trey Kaufman-Wren. He's got the long hair, wears number 4. But if anybody's going to stop a pick and roll, it's Houston. Has been one of the best defensive programs in the country over the past, seems like, decade plus, and it is no different this season. An interesting nugget about them, forwards JoJo Tugler and Terrence Arsenault are both top 5 defenders according to Ken Palm this season. or Evan Mia this season, rather. That's another great basketball site for any of you stats nerds out there. But that's just individual defenders out of the entire country, out of however many 360-plus teams. Houston has 2 of the best in the entire country in their starting lineup. And their guards not bad as well, good defensively, and they all average 11-plus. That's LJ Cryer, Emmanuel Sharp, and Milos Uzan. All 3 good shooters, all 3 creators. LJ Cryer, really, really tough to defend, and he has March experience. That'll do it for... Oh, and I'm going to go ahead and pick Houston in that one, but it should be a close game, being in Indy and all. All right, hopefully y'all learned something from that. I got a lot of useless college basketball info floating around in my head, so that's a good quick preview. Hope I didn't bore you. We're going to go ahead and wrap this thing up with the transfer portal news. I think my favorite thing that I've seen out of the transfer portal all week was the Tom Izzo clip from his press conference. He was tremendous. And it's an old school mentality for sure, but I think it's also the right mentality. I think it's also the most fair mentality. He said, basically in a nutshell, he doesn't want to be in the transfer portal right now because that's unfair to his guys that he is literally still coaching this season, you know? He said he quote, isn't cheating the people that he has. I think that's so important that he said in the press conference, basically, he doesn't give a bleep if this means they're worse off next season or if they miss out on a guy, because he has his guys in an unforgettable experience, as he said, you know, a chance to change their lives, a chance to win a national championship here at Michigan State. He has them 2 games away from that weekend, that opportunity. So I think it's really cool that he's sticking loyal to his guys this year, to the program, to the actual people in the building. I think that's the most fair way to go about it, and it might not be advantageous, and a lot of other coaches are worried about next year while also coaching this year. First of all, it's a mess that the portal's open this early, but I would love for you guys to all go and listen to that Tom Izzo clip. I'm sure it is all over the internet. It is the best thing I've heard about the portal being at this point in the season. It's a shame that the transfer portal's open this early. I think that's pretty well agreed upon, you know, across college basketball and college sports communities. But since it is, I think I'll just note a few of the most important guys in it. Donovan Dent, I love this guy, man. I absolutely love him. I have him on my first team All-America list. I don't see too many other people with him on there. New Mexico legend, if any of y'all aren't caught up. Mountain West player of the season. He's tremendous to watch. Averages 20, shoots the ball incredibly well. A good passer as well. Dent's in the portal. People all over are bidding for him. I've seen, seems like every country in the fan base clamoring for him on Twitter. So that's the big number one guy to get. Bennett Sturts entered the portal. He followed his head coach, Ben McCollum, to Iowa. McCollum, obviously, multi-time D2 national champion. Fantastic year, won at Drake, won them the conference, got in the tournament, won them a game against the Missouri Tigers. That was an awesome upset, fun to watch. Hung in there but was unable to advance to the Sweet 16, so he took a new job after the Bulldogs were eliminated. He'll stay in state, coach the Iowa Hawkeyes. Bennett Sturts will join him. Sturts, tremendous to watch, man. 6'3" point guard, scores at all 3 levels, awesome shooter. Excited for the Iowa Hawkeyes next year. Langston Love, not quite the same production as the previous 2 guys, but you know, a 3-year Baylor starter or player. Starter for at least 2 of them. I can't remember if he started his freshman year, but he's entering the portal. That was kind of shocking because, you know, those are the kind of guys that you kind of remember a program by. And to dip back in on Dent, good for him for chasing the bag, man. I absolutely would. I agree with these guys, man. I think that the money you can make, coaches leave all the time. Why shouldn't players? I think you should take advantage of your opportunities. But from a selfish fan perspective, and this is something that will never change, it just kind of sucks, but it's like, Dent's supposed to be the kind of guy that, like, I remember forever as a Mountain West legend, as New Mexico's best player that I ever watched. And instead, I hope everything works out for him, but there's such a good chance that, you know, he goes down as, he's the guy that Kansas paid $2 million and he scored 12 points a game his senior year. He made the Sweet 16 with Kentucky as kind of the number one guy. And I hope that doesn't happen, but you just like to remember these guys going out as stars at their schools, really repping these programs instead of all just working to transferring to the same few schools by their senior season and just being a rental, really. and cashing out for a check, which, again, I do not blame the players for it. It's just the way the college basketball landscape works nowadays. I just think it'd be cool for Dent to stay at New Mexico and really assert himself as a legend to college basketball instead of just another one-year rental, forgotten type of guy. But that's all selfish. That's all from the fan in me. Moving on, IU, losing two big guys after Mike Woodson leaves. Both big men, Mackenzie Mbako and Malik Renault. Both former five-star bigs. Both have had decent years at IU. Renault, decent disrespectful. Both very good players. They both are five-star high school recruits and five-star portal gets. So, interesting who gets them. Gator fans, I do not think Renault will come. Given the stacked front court that is already in Gainesville, but he was a Gator commit or lean at one point before going to Candy Cane Pants Land up in Bloomington. So those are going to be interesting to watch, both five-star prospects. And then another one, not the same production of the guys I've listed, but Justin Pippen. He plays for Michigan. He is still in the tournament. He is still on that team, and they are in the Sweet 16. They have a chance to win the national championship. He is already in the portal while the team is still in the tourney. And I have no news about where he might end up, but I think that's the real shame with this transfer portal situation. I don't know. Just how hard is it to open it the day after the national championship, man? I don't get it. You're disadvantaging teams. You're disadvantaging players. You're putting players in weird spots. The portal's gotten out of control. Over 50% of the scoring this year in the tournament are from transfers. And I like the ability to transfer, but it's just all the portal stuff opening so early. I'm not a huge fan of that. I'm all for players getting paid. I'm all for player empowerment. But when you're transferring and your team's still in, something just feels wrong about that. There's a similar issue in baseball, but that's a debate for another day. Last thing I touch on before I get on out of here, I saw a graphic on Twitter this week of rotations of these schools and how many guys transferred in, and it showed the top 8 in terms of minutes and production on each lineup. So, example, for the Gators, there were 4 Gator logos and 4 transfer logos, one from Iona, one from Belmont, one from Washington State, and one from FAU, symbolizing the 4 transfers that we have, along with the 4 Gator commits. So the Gators were 4 of 8, right in the middle, really, of the pack. Purdue was the most impressive. They had all 8 of their most productive guys were Purdue commits. They don't have a single transfer, and I think that's really cool to see nowadays. Purdue, a fantastic basketball program. But some other schools, Alabama, 5 different schools in that starting 5, you know. And there's no complaints. It's just crazy to see. Purdue, the only team with their top 8 production guys not transfers. Houston, quite a few Houston commits in that too. I believe they had 6 or 7 of their Big 8 originally committing to U of H. Anyway, not a complaint, just wild to see. I'm sure that'll pop up at some point for you. If I can find it, I'll put it up on the screen. If I can find the account who posted it. Really cool. Just interesting to see how the landscape of the sport has changed. Last thing, this is more of a debate in college basketball. Is the portal killing the sport? No, but you could argue it's killing mid-majors. New Mexico Donovan Dent situation, as I just discussed, I hope it doesn't happen to conferences like the Mountain West. Look, I get it. You're a stud in the MAAC, like Walt. You're going to leave. You're stud in the Sun Belt, man. You're going to transfer to an SEC program. That's all good and well, but I hope guys don't leave mediocre, as crazy as it sounds, Big East or really good Mountain West programs to just hop on and get a paycheck and be another mediocre player with the big boys. You can't blame the kids, though. Coaches leave for better opportunities all the time. It's not on the kids, it's on the system. And this is just the way the sport works now. Listen, it's got its positives and negatives. If the portal didn't exist, man, we wouldn't be able to see Walter Clayton Jr. balling out like this for the Gators in the SEC week in and week out. But at the same time, I think it's really cool that a school like Purdue can be like, hey, like we fully built all of this. And I think some of it comes to all the new head coaches. Obviously, Todd in year 3 is just starting to see his transfers really roll in and develop. Longest tenured Gator is a transfer, for goodness sakes. Will Richard has been here 3 years, came from Belmont after his freshman season. Everybody else, is either transferred in or committed, but is young. So I think he's building something. But you look at Kentucky, Mark Pope, all transfers, which you can't blame him, man. That entire roster dipped and went with Cal or went elsewhere, so he had to build it that way. He's done a heck of a job. You got Young over at BYU, some BYU commits, but a lot of transfers over there as well. First-year head coach, though, so you can't. That's how it's got to be. Anyway, I'm rambling now. I hope y'all have enjoyed. I hope I taught you a little something about each game. I hope I taught you something about Maryland. And I hope I get to come talk to you again here in a couple days. Hopefully the Gators can squeak through that Sweet 16 and the Elite 8. Maybe get a trip to San Antonio. Why not? Enjoy the game. Enjoy all the games today, guys. I love talking about this stuff. Sorry if I ever rambled. We're in quite the podcast studio today. I got my computer sitting on a box of kicks, and I am using my roommate's folding Cowboys chair to record into my phone. So, not in any studio today. I hope the audio quality is okay. But I enjoyed doing this. Hope y'all enjoy listening. Drop a like. Follow for more of this stuff, I guess, man. Go Gators and go college basketball, man. Let's have a heck of a weekend. All right, I'll see you later.